All right, welcome back. Today, we are diving into one of the most notorious, most influential books on power ever written, Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince. I mean, for 500 years, the name Machiavelli has basically meant evil. Shakespeare used Machiavel as shorthand for a villain. And even today, if you call a politician Machiavellian, that is the ultimate insult. But is that really the whole story? So let's get right into it. How did a middle-ranking civil servant from Florence end up writing a book so scandalous that it made his name synonymous with the devil himself?
To find that answer, we've got to peel back the layers of the myth and meet the man, Niccolò Machiavelli. And his story, well, it isn't what you'd expect. It's not about a king or a conqueror, but about a diplomat whose career ended in total disaster.
See, he wasn't a king. He wasn't a conqueror. He was a bureaucrat, a guy who saw the gears of power turning up close. But when the powerful Medici family stormed back into Florence, his whole world just collapsed. He got fired, thrown in prison, tortured, and then exiled. So The Prince, it wasn't some grand philosophical treatise. It was basically a desperate job application, written to prove he was still useful and to get back in the game.
Now, to really wrap your head around his, let's be honest, pretty shocking advice, you have to understand the world that made him. Renaissance Italy. It wasn't all beautiful art and brilliant minds. It was a violent, chaotic landscape of shifting alliances and just constant warfare.
Machiavelli's Italy was not a stable place. It was a political knife fight. The French invasion in 1494 just shattered the whole balance of power. Florence itself got taken over by a religious fanatic who held bonfires of the vanities before, he himself ended up getting burned at the stake. In a world like that, morality starts to feel like a luxury. Survival was the only virtue that really mattered. And it's out of this complete and utter chaos that Machiavelli comes up with this new way of thinking. He wasn't writing a fairy tale about how leaders should behave. He was creating a practical, nuts and bolts survival manual for any leader trying to navigate this incredibly treacherous landscape. So, what was at the heart of his advice? Well, it was something truly, deeply scandalous for his time. The idea that for a ruler, there's a huge difference between being a good person and being a good leader. This is where Machiavelli just completely flips the script. His radical idea was that all those traditional Christian virtues, mercy, honesty, kindness, could actually get a ruler killed and their state destroyed in a dangerous world. He argued that to be a truly good ruler, one who keeps the state safe and secure, you sometimes have to be willing to be a bad man. What he was saying was, if you want to achieve noble goals, like a stable, secure country, you have to be willing to use some pretty ignoble methods. You have to learn, as he put it, how not to be good, at least when the situation calls for it. And for Machiavelli, there was one guy who was the absolute poster child for this new kind of leader, the brilliant and totally brutal Cesare Borgia. He was a man Machiavelli saw as a master of taking circumstance by the scruff of the neck. And check out the genius of this move. Borgia gets stability, and he wins over the people, all through this one calculated piece of political theater. He lets somebody else do all the dirty work and take all the heat. Then he publicly punishes that same guy, making himself look like a just and merciful savior. It's brilliant. You see, for Machiavelli, this wasn't a morality play. It wasn't about good versus evil. It was about effective versus ineffective. And Cesare Borgia was brutally effective. And this really gets to the core of his whole philosophy. Power plays by its own set of rules, completely separate from everyday morality. A ruler should absolutely appear to be virtuous, he said, but you can't ever let those appearances stop you from doing what is ruthlessly necessary to protect the state. So, yeah, it's really no surprise that this manual for tyrants kicked up an absolute firestorm. For the last 500 years, his legacy has been debated, condemned, and defended, all in equal measure. I mean, his advice was seen as so cynical, so anti-religious, that the Catholic Church actually banned the book for 200 years. His critics, and there were a lot of them, argued he had basically written a poison pen playbook for dictators. His name got linked to horrible events like the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in France, supposedly ordered by a Machiavellian queen. But then you have other people, really smart people like Sir Francis Bacon, who saw it completely differently.
They saw him as a realist, the first person to really look at politics with a cold, scientific eye and describe how power actually works, not how we wish it would. So which one is it? A handbook for dictators or a timeless, clear-eyed analysis of power? The thing is, the answer is probably both. And that contradiction is exactly what makes the book so compelling and, frankly, so disturbing, even today. At the end of the day, this is why the book still matters. It forces us to confront a really uncomfortable truth, that leadership often operates on a brutal logic that's completely separate from how we wish the world worked. Ultimately, Machiavelli's legacy is this one, single, unsettling challenge to look past appearances. He's forcing us to ask, behind the pious speeches and the noble promises of our own leaders, what is the real, unvarnished nature of power?